Hi, I'm Virginia from Right Clinic, and here with me today is Dr. Ben Makin, PhD, and he is from Runic Communications, which is a medical writing agency, and they have recently celebrated their 1 year anniversary. Yay, congrats.
Hello, Virginia. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to have you. I've been so excited to speak with you. So let's jump in with the first question. So what do you do and how did you get into it?
Yeah, well, thank you very much. Yeah, so medical writing is my sort of main thing, and about a little bit about the kind of launch of Runic Communications. So I was working in an agency environment, which I'm sure lots of sort of medical writers are used to for a few years. Before that, I'd actually did a little bit of freelancing as well on the side of my PhD. So that's kind of where I started. Made this decision to jump into a kind of company sort of micro agency ownership. Relatively recently, as you say, a year anniversary coming up, which is exciting. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun. And to be honest, anyone out there considering this sort of route, it is a whole lot of fun. You meet a lot of lovely people. Medcomms industry, I just love the people in it. It's just something that really makes me so happy. I mean, even like meeting yourself, very kindly invite me on this. It's I think we're a wicked community, aren't we? So it's just awesome to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much. So how did you get from doing your PhD? So after you finished your PhD, what was your kind of next step to, start your career?
Yeah, so I was lucky enough actually to have a couple of sort of contacts who I knew were doing medical writing. So I think a lot of the time, at least in my experience, kind of talking to other writers and other people, especially when I was in an agency, talking to your colleagues, how did you get started? And often, a lot of the time, I used to hear people saying, oh, actually, I kind of fell into medcomms. That's the term I hear a lot of people say. They fell into it. And what they mean is they didn't really necessarily hear of it beforehand. They were doing something else. Might be research. Obviously, a lot of PhD candidates end up there. Master students might sort of do a bit of research, then find out about medcomms and sort of get a bit interested. And I was kind of in that boat, really. But I was lucky enough to have some contacts when you were doing this as I was doing my PhD. So I started to sort of do a little bit of freelance work just on the side, one or two projects as I was doing the PhD. Then when I finished, I was sort of trying to make that decision. And I think it's such a classic decision when you're in research. Oh, do I carry on and try and pursue an academic route, or do I, look elsewhere? And because I knew about medcomms, I was very tempted by that. I very much liked the kind of application, I guess, of the science that you get in medcomms, and the kind of mixture with creativity that really appealed to me. So I started to sort of experiment more with that. And then over time, I didn't even realize actually that I just well and truly left academia behind and ended up working in this agency for a few years. Lovely experience, lovely people, really, really enjoyed it. Still feel guilty about going freelance, to be perfectly honest, because I love that team, love them. But there was just lots of things going on that I really wanted to sort of jump and pursue. And that takes me to now, really. Just took the jump.
Yeah, amazing. So I would say that, you kind of built your experience while you were still doing your PhD, then you kind of did freelancing with an agency, and then you realized you wanted to do other things with your time, and this kind of gives you the flexibility to do that. So have you got the best of both worlds now?
Yeah, I think so. So I think the great thing obviously about obviously going freelance and then sort of trying to form your own little agency is obviously, it's all on you in terms of where you go next, right? I mean, working from project to project, when you start taking on your sort of longer term bookings and things, and when you start to see things shaping, it's actually really exciting. And I can remember my first few sort of jobs out under the kind of Runic Communications banner. They were so varied, and actually I loved that. So I kept sort of going forwards, trying to make it continue and to kind of have that that lovely sort of variety in my work. I mean, some of the early projects I was doing were quite creative, really. They were sort of medical animations, sort of medical storyboards, and they were to do with sort of like brand new sort of therapy areas that haven't developed in many years, and now obviously kind of off the back, and obviously loads of therapy areas are going through this sort of almost like mini renaissance, if you like, because off the back of sort of COVID research, really, and the sort of boom that gave to vaccine research. I guess if you're allowed to call it a bit of a silver lining, that would be one. And it was kind of one of these projects. So it was really exciting to get involved, really early doors in these sort of vaccine programs, and a lot of creative materials. And that's what I love. Actually, one of the things I really love about medcomms in general is I guess if you sort of explain to someone what the subject matter is, it's tempting to think, oh, that sounds great and interesting, but it sounds very dry. But actually, as writers' jobs, and it depends obviously what project, but a lot of the projects I do, and I think a lot of medical writers end up doing, it's all about taking that content, making it accessible, making it interesting to read. Whoever the stakeholders are, whoever your audience is, it tends to be the same, similar job, to be honest. You'll change the level of detail, sure, but ultimately you want to make that information accessible. And yeah, those kind of projects, I love them, and I ended up lucky enough to have a lot of those early doors. So yeah, and you get a lot of freedom to sort of decide where you go, right? You can think, okay, I'm happy to just take X sort of whole wide variety, or if you want to focus down and you think, what, I love doing that. There's opportunity then to pursue particular routes. But yeah, I think if I can give a tiny bit of advice, if anyone is considering a similar route to that, it would just be to, don't be afraid of trying different new things. A lot of the ways I think that really helped me, including when I was in an agency environment as well, was kind of learning to use almost hobbies. Very much hobbies in some cases, like things like video editing, Photoshop, stuff like that. And you don't think at all that that's going to be applicable to your job. But what I would say is give it a try and find ways to use those things that you might think, employer's not going to care about that. That's no good. Well, actually, if you look out there's probably people who specialize in just that thing that you're thinking about. So never be afraid to give something a try and sort of use your passion, and don't feel like you've got to fit a mold. Because I just think you can craft your own mold to an extent, if that makes any sense at all. But yeah. Anyway, I'll stop blabbing. Sorry.
You don't need to apologize. I love the analogy of a mold, because you feel like you need to fit a certain mold, but actually what you're doing is you're constantly shaping, breaking, and remolding that mold all the time, depending on the needs of the market, but also what you're into and the new skills that you learn. So, for example, I really got into video editing and really got into Canva design, and those have been such helpful tools just in general for personal branding. But then also, if you do personal branding well with those kinds of tools, then they want those skills as well for their brand. So like you said, I totally agree with, keep learning and trying new things. And I love that you've had that experience of video editing as well. And one of my questions actually that I've just thought of now is, how do you match up the client that you found with the people in your agency to make sure that you can get the job done in the most efficient way? Because I would imagine now after a year, you've got quite a good, solid client base, and clients are almost coming to you now because you've got a great portfolio. And now you said earlier in our conversation, we were talking about you looking for people to join your team so that you can do more. So how do you match up clients that you found or clients that approach you with the talent that you have in your agency?
Yeah, great question. So, at the moment, I should say we're a bit of a micro agency expanding. So, always looking for, actually, if any freelancers or anyone is listening in who fancies sort of a bit of medical writing and thinks that Runic could be a good fit. Yeah, definitely, I'm definitely all ears. So please do get in touch. But yeah, I mean, in general, to be honest, I always tackle sort of requests for work from clients with what I like to call, and this comes back to actually my sort of branding a little bit. I quite like to try and be quite tenacious with it, if that's a word I can use, because that comes back to why I actually really have taken inspiration from sort of Vikings and Norse culture. I think the answer should be, as often as you can, just say yes to it. And I know this goes against the sort of work-life balance ideas, but you've just got to manage it. You've got to be careful, of course, and you've got to make sure that you don't burn out. And in particular, if I ever have freelancers or people working for me, I'm really, really careful to establish that, because of course, that's just essential. And really, if you're thinking about that, even purely from a work perspective, you're not going to do good work if you're overloaded. So of course, that's got to be an essential element. But to me, it does come back to a bit of tenacity, a bit of willingness to go forward and try something. And as I said before a bit about, I think it's just really key to just try things. If you're not sure, that's fine. Give it a go. You can just be honest with the client. Say, I haven't done this particular type of project before. I've got experience in X, Y, Z. And actually, often that approach works. And I've had a lot of bookings that have been like that. So someone will say, "Oh, hey Ben, I don't know if you done many of these sort of type of clinical trial reports before?" And I say, "I don't think I've done that kind of thing. I've done X, Y, Z. Would that be useful?" And they say, "Yeah, actually, that sounds good. Do a bit of work for you, see what you think." And that can kick off, brand new relationships. So that's great. So, and then when it comes to sort of matching people to the work, I think if you can take into account people's primary sort of interests, then of course you're going to get good work. So it's almost like a really fundamental and obvious thing to say, but I think a lot of the time you can kind of forget that. It can be tempting to think, well, I've got this piece of work, I'll chuck it your way almost. So there's definitely an element of that. If you can match it to interests, then obviously you're going to get fantastic work. So even if you're being, from a purely selfish kind of view, you're going to get great work. So make sure that person is happy and motivated. That's really key. So I think that's probably the key thing that I'd say about matching work to the right people. You've got to have that passion, because if you don't, then what's the point really? At the end of the day, it's no one's going to have a good time, and you've got to be enjoying yourself. Otherwise, it's not it doesn't have any sort of longevity to it at all if you don't, and it's just important for well-being anyway as well. But yeah, I don't know if that makes any sense. Sorry, I know again I've blabbed an awful lot there, but yeah.
No need to apologize. I was going to say, I love how you essentially said that you have a certain talent pool, and as long as they have some kind of experience that can match up to the client, then you can deliver on your promise. But then also you're honest with your client as well about what you can do and your previous work that may be similar to what they're looking for, just to make sure, before any contracts are signed, that they are happy to be signing up for that. And then obviously your commitment is to deliver on that promise. So I love that. And I think it's so important to reiterate that, part of it is going to be learning as well. So you'll produce, more than one copy of what you're going to serve the client. There will be edits until you get to the final kind of piece that everyone is happy with. And that's really awesome. So what's next on the horizon for you?
Well, so a few things. So I guess coming back to looking to sort of expand the team a little bit, I'm definitely still looking to do that. So as I say, if you're interested at all, do let me know. And hopefully a bit of silliness on LinkedIn. So I've got a bit of a very silly campaign that's coming up that I'm hoping to do very, very soon. It involves a boat. It's going to be very daft. It's going to relate very loosely to my ridiculous marketing all about Vikings. So look out for that. I don't know why I'm selling it as if it's just some kind of top secret cool thing, but I might as well go with it. Yeah, look out for it on LinkedIn.
I love that. I think we need a bit of wacky marketing, and it definitely got my attention. I was like, oh, no one's doing Vikings. What's this about? And I was like, and that's how I ended up reaching out to you. So it definitely works from my opinion. So I was like, oh, he seems fun. Let's have him on the podcast. And you've shared such a wealth of experience. So thank you so much. I'm sure the audience will appreciate it. And I'll leave a link in the description below so that you can connect with Ben on LinkedIn and also check out his Runic Communications medical writing agency in case you have the creative skills or otherwise to work with him. So thank you so much, Ben.
Thank you very much, Virginia. Absolute pleasure to be here. Love what you do. So keep going, and thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for the encouragement. And I'm sure we'll talk again and have you back on the show because you're too brilliant to not do that. So, all right, well, have a great day and see you at the next episode. Bye.